You know you're Wasian when someone asks what your ethnicity is on a dating app, and you spend 11 minutes staring at the text box trying to figure out which answer is going to get you the most honest response. Not the most matches, the most honest one. Because you already know that whoever is swiping on you is seeing something. They just don't always know what they're seeing. And more importantly, they don't always know why they like it. Here's the thing nobody says out loud. There is a measurable, documented phenomenon happening when people find Wasian people attractive. It is not just a compliment. It is not just a trend. It is a convergence of biology, psychology, and a very specific social moment. And it is happening to you, on your face, right now, whether you asked for it or not. If you've ever been called exotic by someone who clearly meant it as a compliment, but also kind of didn't know what they were looking at, this video is for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more topics like this one. Let's start with the science, because the science is wild. In 2010, Dr. Michael Lewis at Cardiff University ran the largest study of its kind, 1,205 faces, randomly sampled across black, white, and mixed-race individuals, rated for perceived attractiveness. The result was small but statistically significant. Mixed-race faces were, on average, consistently rated as more attractive than monoracial faces, not by a huge margin, but by a real, repeatable, peer-reviewed margin. The explanation researchers landed on goes back to Charles Darwin. In 1876, yes, that long ago, he documented a biological phenomenon called heterosis, also known as hybrid vigor. The short version is this. When two organisms from genetically different backgrounds produce offspring, those offspring tend to be biologically fitter than either parent. More genetic variation means more biological coverage. The immune system is more robust. The developmental process is more stable. The organism, at a cellular level, is just running better. Here's where it connects directly to your face. A UCLA study found that biracial people, on average, have more symmetrical facial features than monoracial people, and facial symmetry is one of the most consistent cross-cultural markers of perceived attractiveness in the entire field of evolutionary psychology. It signals developmental stability. It signals genetic fitness. It signals in the most ancient and nonverbal way possible. Health. So when someone looks at a Wasian face and feels something they can't quite articulate, that pull that doesn't have an obvious explanation, part of what they're responding to is biology. Thousands of years of evolutionary preference, wired into the visual processing system, firing at a face that reads as genetically diverse. You didn't earn this. It's not a skill. It is literally just your face being the physical result of two genetically different populations combining and the human brain responding to that the way it has always responded to it, which is both flattering and slightly weird to think about. Now here's the part that gets even stranger. It's not just that mixed-race faces are rated more attractive. It's how people perceive them that creates the dating paradox. Researchers found something specific in the 2024 evolutionary psychology study that nobody talks about enough. When both Caucasian and Chinese participants rated biracial faces, they showed a significant own race bias, but in opposite directions. Caucasians perceived the biracial faces as more Caucasian than they actually were. Chinese participants perceived the same faces as more Chinese than they actually were. Think about what that means in a dating context. You are, simultaneously, being perceived as familiar by multiple different groups. Not exotic to everyone. Familiar to everyone. Every person looking at a Wasian face is unconsciously categorizing it as slightly more like them than it actually is. The brain does this automatically, without permission, before conscious thought even gets involved. That is a psychological unlock that very few groups have. The paradox starts here. You belong to everyone's in-group simultaneously and to no single in-group completely, which in dating terms means you get the initial in-group warmth from multiple directions and the "but what are you exactly?" conversation from all of them too. Here's the lesser-known fact. Facial studies found that faces with medium levels of skin tone and medium blended facial features are rated as the most attractive, more attractive than either extreme. This was confirmed cross-culturally in a study comparing British and Guinean participants, both of whom independently preferred mixed ethnicity face shapes over either parent group shape. The Wasian phenotype, often presenting with intermediate skin tone, a combination of East Asian and European features, dark hair, sits at exactly that medium point. Not by accident. by genetic math. And yet, the same research community that documents all of this attractiveness data also documents something more uncomfortable. This desirability comes packaged with a very specific kind of attention that a lot of Wasian people are not always thrilled to receive. Let's talk about being desired as a type versus being desired as a person. There is a documented, extensively discussed phenomenon in Asian American studies called the fetishization of Asian and mixed Asian women in particular. The exoticization of mixed-race people has a long history. Researcher Nishime describes mixed-race Asian individuals as having been treated as objects of visual fascination for decades, not just as individuals, but as symbols of globalization, of cultural mixing, of something that reads as visually interesting, in a way that gets projected onto rather than understood, which creates a very specific experience that a lot of Wasian people in dating have probably encountered. Someone is intensely interested in you, and you can tell that part of what they are interested in is specifically what you are. Not who, what. The combination, the look, the thing they can't quite categorize. This is where the paradox gets its name. The biology that makes Wasian faces statistically more attractive is real and documented. The psychology that makes them simultaneously familiar to multiple groups is real and documented. And the social experience of being desired as a type rather than as an individual, that is also real and documented. These three things happen to the same person simultaneously, and they are not always easy to tell apart in real time. You can be in a conversation with someone who genuinely likes you as a person, and you can be in a conversation with someone who likes the concept of you, and from the outside in the early stages of dating, those two things look almost identical. The science says you're attractive. The experience says be careful about what kind of attractive. Here's the social media layer on top of all of this, because it matters. The number Wasian check trend on TikTok wasn't just a cute trend. It was, according to actual academic research published in 2022, a documented new form of public mixed-race identity formation, a way of moving what used to be a private experience into a public one, claiming the identity rather than having it projected onto you. What's interesting about that shift is that it changed the dynamic slightly. Instead of being perceived, Wasian people started performing, reclaiming the visual curiosity on their own terms, showing the parent photos, naming the heritage, turning "what are you" from a question that happens to you into content you author yourself. And dating app culture noticed the Wasian identity becoming visible at a cultural level. Through TikTok, through beauty trends, through the specific aesthetic moment that blended K-beauty and European fashion and created something genuinely new, that visibility has real effect on dating pool dynamics. What was previously a private ambiguity became, for a period, one of the most visible aesthetics in the culture, which meant that a lot of people suddenly knew what Wasian meant. And that meant that, for the first time, some Wasian people were being sought out specifically rather than simply appreciated when encountered. Which is great, and also circles back to the type versus person problem from 3 paragraphs ago. Here is the part that is actually the most interesting and the least discussed. The meta-perception research, studies on what people believe others find attractive, found that Asian Americans tend to believe they are more desirable to white partners than to other Asian Americans. That belief, in turn, actually shapes their dating preferences. Not their stated preferences, their behavioral preferences. Who they actually pursue. This means that part of what looks like a straightforward attractiveness hierarchy in dating data is actually a self-reinforcing loop. Social messaging about who finds whom attractive shapes what people believe about themselves, which shapes who they pursue, which generates the dating pattern data that then reinforces the original social messaging. Wasian individuals sit at the intersection of this loop in a genuinely complicated way. They have the physical traits that the research says multiple groups respond to positively. They also carry the social history of both the Asian American dating experience and the mixed-race dating experience, and including all the complexity that comes with both. Being statistically desirable is not the same as dating easily. Being perceived as familiar by multiple groups is not the same as feeling at home in any of them. Having the biology that triggers attraction is not the same as having the social experience of belonging. The paradox is not that Wasian people are desired. It's that the desirability and the complexity come from exactly the same source. The genetic diversity that the research says makes the face more symmetrical is the same genetic diversity that makes the identity harder to contain in a text box on a dating app. You can be the face that multiple groups simultaneously feel kinship with and still spend 11 minutes staring at that bio, because you know that whoever is swiping on you is seeing something. You just want them to be seeing you. If this one made you think you know what to do, like it, subscribe, and stick around. There's a whole lot more of the Wasian experience to get through. Watch the next video.